Good morning. My name is Ann McDonald, and I'm speaking to you this morning from the Quaker Meeting House on Prospect Street in Somerset, Massachusetts. The Quaker Meeting House on Prospect Street is the oldest structure in the town of Somerset. It is the oldest Quaker Meeting House in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and possibly the oldest in all of New England. It is certainly one of the oldest houses of worship in the United States. In 2008, after a long, long history, the Quaker Meeting House was deeded over to the town of Somerset as a gift. In 2013, due to some hard work by members of the Somerset Historical Commission, the Quaker Meeting House was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. During this period of time, the building had suffered some serious structural damage. In 2016, a new organization was formed in response to a structural crisis. The organization's name is Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation. It is a nonprofit fundraising group authorized by the town to support and to manage fundraising for the historic preservation of Somerset structures and landmarks. The date of 1701, takes us back considerably in time. The building that we're standing in today is the physical embodiment of the early history of Somerset, Massachusetts. Think of it. The people who gathered in this building were not citizens of the United States. They were subjects of the King of England. The people who gathered here for their religious services were not residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They were residents of Plymouth Colony, the Pilgrim Colony. The people who gathered here didn't even gather in a place that was called Somerset. They gathered in a place that was called Shawamet, and it was a part of Swansea. That, for instance, is why the sign in front of the building says the Swansea Friends Meeting, because the name of it was never changed. We go back to the worst war with Native people in all of New England history. It ended in 1677, and it was a war between the English colonists, especially the ones in southeastern Massachusetts, and the Wampanoag Nation. The Native people were destroyed. Plymouth Colony was devastated and bankrupt. Some tribal territory that was called Shawamet was seized by the authorities of Plymouth Colony and put up for sale in order to pay off their debts. The boundary of this piece of territory, called Shawamet, are identical to the boundaries of the town of Somerset today. When this Shawamet was opened for settlement, a man by the name of William Slade was living in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. William traveled to Plymouth to see if he could possibly purchase some land along the banks of the Taunton River. He was certainly very, very surprised when he was authorized to do so, because William was a member of a savagely persecuted denomination of Protestant Christians who had been excluded from every single English colony along the eastern seaboard, with the one exception of Rhode Island. Quakers were persecuted because, not for what they believed, but for how they carried out their belief. They were pacifists in a time when there was a lot of war and fighting, and they came from a European tradition of war. They refused to take an oath when loyalty oaths to the king, even to colonial authorities, were the rule of the day. They would not take an oath. They believed in gender equality. That was sort of unheard of. That probably got them into a lot of trouble. But the thing that got them into more trouble than anything else at all was the fact that they did not have ministers. They believed you did not need a middle person to negotiate between you and God. You could speak to God on your own. And I say that that got them into a lot of trouble because the power of the ministers in Massachusetts, in Puritan Massachusetts, was the greatest power there was. So here you have these people saying, no, you don't need them. You don't need ministers. After William Slade was able to purchase land from the Plymouth authorities, other Quakers who were living in Portsmouth and Newport decided that they would follow suit, and they also were able to buy land here and were in Somerset, in Shawarmit, I should say, in 1680. The street names that we still have today indicate the boundaries and the location of their early farms. Were names like Slade, Wilbur, Brayton, Chase, Buffington. You've all seen them. You've traveled on them. This building construction began on this building in October of 1701. It was enlarged 3 times. When Holly McNamara takes you around for a little tour, she will be able to point out the different changes that were made during those years. Why was it enlarged 3 times? Because the congregation was growing. The people who worshipped here were the founders of Somerset. By 1700, they were the predominant population. They were the people who chose where the roads would be, the same ones that you drive on or walk on today. They would have had a great deal to say about who the first law enforcement officer would be. They were the people who decided some pretty weighty issues in regard to education. Would they have a school? Would they actually construct a building and have a school? Would they hire a teacher? Would they allow both boys and girls to attend that school at public expense? Well, it turned out that their beliefs, in gender equality had an effect on the first school system in this town. And you did have little girls going to school with little boys. Boston, for all its greatness, was about 80 years later before girls were included into a public school. Old Plymouth Colony never recovered from King Philip's War. It was absorbed into Massachusetts in 1692. Now here's the deal. The Puritans were such ardent persecutors of Quakers because the people in power felt threatened. They absorbed Plymouth Colony, but they passed a statute saying that people who are practicing Quakers in what had been Plymouth Colony can continue to practice their religion. No problemo. However, they are going to be taxed now for the support of a Puritan minister. The people in this building made the decision that they were not going to do that. They were absolutely not going to pay for the support of a Puritan minister. Instead, they taxed themselves 5 times over in order to bring a legal case into the highest court in Massachusetts Bay Colony. In 1728, they won. Now, I would like to suggest to you that that spark may possibly have led to some thinking that ultimately led to the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. As time went on, we should mention there's a very famous national figure who is associated with the Meeting House here. She was a woman in the 1760s. Her name was Patience Brayton. And she felt compelled to speak out against slavery. Some of you may be surprised, but slavery was everywhere in southeastern Massachusetts. The first slaves were brought into Somerset in 1680, along with the first people who settled here. Patience Brayton felt that slavery was not God's will, and she decided that she was going to do something about it. She was from Rhode Island. She married a man by the name of Preserved Brayton. He was the grandson of the original Preserved Brayton, who had the first farm on Brayton Point. Her husband had slaves. Her husband had probably a lot of slaves because he had a lot of land. She talked him out of his slaves. She then focused her attention on people living in the immediate vicinity, here in Somerset and Swansea, among Quakers, and she was instrumental in a great deal of slaves being held by people who lived in our area. She was not satisfied, okay? Just before the American Revolution, she traveled along the eastern seaboard. She visited every single one of the English colonies. She spoke out against slavery. She at times was only with a couple of other Quakers who took turns accompanying her. A backwoodsman told her he was not going into Georgia with her, to talk about doing away with slavery. She said pretty much, and I'm paraphrasing here, of course, okay, if you don't want to go, that's all right, I'll go myself. And in the end, the man agreed to accompany her. She did not run into any trouble. She is regarded nationally as one of the first voices to speak out against slavery in the United States. She was about 100 years ahead of her time. You had the abolitionist movement forming just before the Civil War, 100 years later. But she was doing something about these things at that time. So that's a quick little history lesson for everybody. Remember, the building goes back to 1701. Very important things that formed the town were the result of decisions that were made in this building, and we can even say that the people who gathered here had an impact on the national stage. Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation believes that the building is part of the identity of the town of Somerset. The people who went to services here, as I said, they were the founders of Somerset. They were the people who made all of the early decisions. And this is part of our culture. This is part of our history. This is something we would want to preserve. And something that hopefully someday children would be able to come in here and listen to maybe someone talk to them about Somerset history. Perhaps we might have a small corner of the building where artifacts could be displayed. We could continue our history here for people who wanted to know about it with maybe a lecture program. Have musical groups come in here and perform. It's part of our community. This building, I think, is the heart of the community. We don't want to, I mean, how many communities can say they have one of the oldest houses of worship in the United States? How many communities can say, yes, well, we have a woman of national significance as far as social justice goes. She was a member of our congregation. She lived in Somerset. I think it's important because it's part of us, and we need to preserve our identity and our culture.
I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on how the Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation 501c3 nonprofit had started. It was really kind of organic. In 2016, when I first became selectman, I learned about, due to the town warrant, the article about this structure and the roof. They were looking to provide funding for the replacement of just the materials for the roof replacement. And so I took it upon myself to learn more about the building, to see, I'd driven by it every day, but I really didn't know anything about it. So took it upon myself to take a tour with Rick Shane from the Historical Society, and also Ann McDonald, now our town historian and chair of the Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation, soon to be. And so I went by myself on a tour of the building and posted it on social media. And after doing so, several people had reached out and said, I want to learn more too. What is that building? I've seen it driving by, but I don't know anything about it, similar to my situation. So I said, okay, I'll arrange a tour. I put together a second tour, and about 12 people came. Both Marianne and Rick gave that tour again. We posted that on social media again, and even more people reached out. And so it became kind of viral, word of mouth. We put together a third tour, and about 75 people responded and came on the third tour. And on that tour, one of the residents handed a very substantial amount of money and a check to Marianne and said, I really want to contribute to the preservation of this building. and we had nowhere to put the money. And so we talked at length about what our options were, and also we really did not want to go to the town's coffers and raise money through taxation, because we all know the situation that the town of Somerset is in right now. And so we said, okay, we're going to form a nonprofit, and we're going to raise the money ourselves, and interested parties can donate. We can go after grants, both private grants, state grants, and whatnot, and that's exactly what we've done. So in 2016, the formal nonprofit 501c3 Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation was formed. Mary Ann is the chair of that group. We have a treasurer, Tony Kucikas. We have a clerk. At the time, it was Kathleen Rubano, and is now Priscilla Murphy. And we have a vice president, or a vice chair, John Larson. And everyone, we have a very large, wonderful committee as well that contributes very much to the success of the nonprofit. And so since 2016, when it was formed, we have held 2 galas and other small events, and also have applied for grants. And in the meantime, the structural repair that Mary Ann had spoken of, we were very concerned. There was a major storm. A second time, a tree had fallen on the back of the building, and so there was an emergency repair, deemed an emergency repair by the state. And so we were able to come in and quickly, with the help of our architect, Andrew DiGiammo, who's done an incredible job, and the contractors, Sino and Al Castro, they came in, they have experience with this type of work. They did an amazing job. And so the architect designed the structural repairs that needed to take place before the roof replacement. So the goal is to replace the initial goal, the short-term goal is to replace the roof so that we can make the building watertight to the elements of the outside. And the building was built so well that it has stood all of these 300 plus years. We're very lucky that it's still here after all that it's been through. And so we've now successfully raised enough private funding through the grants and private fundraisers we've completed the structural repairs. Those have been complete. The plans for the roof design and replacement are in the works, and we're hoping within the next couple of months now, by the end of the winter, to replace the roof. The timing's a little bit tight, but over the next couple of months during the winter time, we're hoping to have that replaced. And then after that point, we'll be working towards raising and taking bigger steps towards raising more money and we'll talk about this more on the tour that you're about to see, the couple of different tours that we give, raising money to do the entire building as a whole. And we have a large list of ideas as to how the building can be used. I actually visited the Quaker Meeting House in Nantucket. Their Quaker Meeting House is about 137 years younger than ours. Quakers hadn't even arrived to Nantucket by the time our building here was built. So that kind of adds to the picture of how rich the history is here in Somerset. Hi everybody, Holly McNamara here from Somerset Roundtable, and I'm here with Ann McDonald, Somerset's historian, Kathleen Rubano, who is one of the clerk for the Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation. Ann McDonald is also the chair of Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation, and Andrew DiGiammo, who is the Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation and the town of Somerset's new architect, to help us with some immediate plans for the Quaker Meeting House repairs so that we can get moving on the structural repairs and the roof, which we all have been so anxiously anticipating for the past year and a half or so. What we're doing now is we're going to tour the Quaker Meeting House and review some of the structure's layout and the construction phases since 1701 all the way through the present day. And we're also going to talk about the immediate plans that we have to implement the structural repairs and kind of what they mean going forward, and kind of give an overview of our plan. So here we go. I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to follow Andrew and crew. Okay. Here we go. Hi, Andrew.
Hi. So the original building is almost 320 years old. It was begun in 1701, finished in 1702. It's important that we understand the structure and the different times period that each part was built so we can do a proper repair that's in line with historically what was done at the time. But more importantly, the building has fallen into disrepair and there's some emergency repairs needed. So our goal, you know, we're gonna have to do this in certain different phases. Our goal right now is to, first of all, get a roof on and keep the water from getting in the building, and at the same time making the most significant repairs, which must be done right away. So we're not putting any good money to bad. This building needs a lot of work, but we'll divide it into phases that make sense, and we'll do the most significant ones and the most needed ones first. So we're outside looking in right now, and the best way to understand the original dimensions of this building is to look at what was called the porch at the time of the 1701 construction. And that's this piece here that's about 34 feet wide. That was as wide as the meeting house was when it was first constructed in 1701. And to the left, you can see an addition that was put on. There were significant additions to this building in 1746. To the left is an 11-foot addition that was put on the ladies' side. And over on the right is a 14 or a 15-foot addition that was put on in 1746 also. That was on the men's side. That makes the building the size that it is today, roughly 60 feet long, 30 feet wide, with this 7 by 34-foot porch on the front. The porch has since been closed in the middle. The middle used to be open. You could go up the stairs and then enter from the side. The porch was closed in. So before we go in, we're going to take a look at this side. This side here is having some major structural issues. You can look at it from the outside and go inside and see what's causing that. If you sight down that wall, you can almost see that the building begins to drop almost an inch right when we get to this corner. And the problem just gets worse as it takes on water and keeps exacerbating itself. So this is the area we're going to focus on structurally in this corner right away. You can see in the shingles, you can almost see where it dropped, where these were one time a perfect horizontal line. You can now see it drop. So the shingles are telling the story of what the building needs. The building would have originally been clapboard all the way around. You saw some clapboard on the front. So let's go inside and look at how the structure works inside and what we need to do.
Okay, I'm going to show them the back real quick. I believe that hole right there is where the tree originally punctured the roof, but it's since been somewhat repaired, but it still needs some work. All right. Okay. How's everyone doing? We're Facebook Live right now. Hi, everyone. All right, here we go.
There's the entry that was built in 1746.
Oh, 1746, the entries here.
That's why this side's raised, so you could enter from this side, up and in.
We've had some overview historical tours of the building a couple of times over the summers, but this is more focused on the structure itself.
So now we've entered in, we're standing in what would have been the porch. We would have been outside in 1701. We would have been outside, there would have been a wall here. This would have been outside back then. This was an original area of a window. Sash has been changed since then, but there would have been a wall here and a wall where Mary Ann's standing. So, and two doors. Mary Ann's standing at the men's door, and I'm standing at the ladies' door. That was the main entry over here in 1701. Would have been through a door and into here. So now we're standing inside, and this This particular part would have been, we would have been inside the 1701 building before it was added to in 1746. To understand where the building was added onto in 1746, you can imagine an H shaped by the beams above. This being one leg of the H, this being the cross piece of the H from the cross, and the other leg of the H is back here. So if you can see the H formed by these beams, that was the original 1701 structure.
See, that's the door, the entrance where Mary Ann's standing. That's the one side of the H, that beam to that column. And then where Andrew was just, that's the other side of the H where that column is to the back.
The octagon posts would have been added in 1746 when they took the exterior walls out. So, we come over here. We'd be looking at a post, where a post was in 1701. This has been modified and modified in 1746, and then there again after with a structural repair. But this was one of the corners from the 1701 building. And this would be that 14-foot addition I talked about coming out. What's interesting is that in 1746, this was the original 1746 plaster with 1746 wood lath. What they did in 1872 is they covered that again, and this is the wainscoting from 1746. They covered that with some strapping here, lathed over that, and plastered over that. Obviously the walls were crumbling back then, so they just built out in front of them. So this is the original 1746 plaster and lath you can see here. Original 1746 wainscoting, and this was added in 1872 when they did some upgrades. We do have an original post that hasn't been altered from 1701. That's on the other corner of the 1701 part of the building, which again is defined by this structural line here. You can see it go into the wall, so, and then it goes into the stairwell. We can go in there and look at that old post, which is in dire need of repair. Well, there it is. That's an original 1701 gunstock post right here. Has water and insect damage, but it's still remaining, and you can see that it's shouldered and then carved for headroom, but it's picking up this girder that would support the balcony above. So this is an original 1701 post here.
That goes right into there.
This would have been the ladies' entrance, going back to 1701 and then serving as a ladies' entrance right through. The men and the women entered on different sides of the building. So let's go back in here for a little bit,
Okay.
and then you can go upstairs.
Okay.
So here again, this is this line of structure from the 1701, and this is the 11-foot addition from 1746. The only time additions were added to the building was in 1746. There were upgrades after that, but that's the only time space was added. So in 1746, it went from, 1701 building was 34 feet wide, went to 60 feet by adding 11 feet here and 14 over there. Now, the big change in 1746 was not only expanding the footprint downstairs, they started using the gallery, the balcony above for space. In 1746, the membership was increasing, so they needed more people space. And they did that by basically adding a second floor, but they would leave it open. It's all open. It's now has shutters that close it off, and we'll talk about that later. But this would have all been open, so they could have looked down. At that time, 1746, they were still having silent meetings. So there was no,
Oh, their meetings were silent?
yeah. You wanna talk about that, Mary Ann?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The Quakers who worshipped here in the 1700s did not believe that a minister was necessary. They believed that a person could speak to God on their own, and they did not need any kind of go-between. As a result, very often, with the women on one side and the men on the other, the congregation would be facing a couple of elders who would be sitting in the front of the congregation. And everyone was just sitting and meditating or praying in complete silence until someone decided that they had something that they wanted to share. Someone decided that they had something meaningful that they needed to say. A lot of the things that were said here, based on the idea of social justice, it was in this building during one of those meetings, I'm sure, that someone spoke up and said, you know something, I know it's totally acceptable, but I really think slavery is a moral evil. That kind of thing. Some meetings passed in complete silence, and the signal that the meeting was over would be when the elders rose from their bench or the chairs, whatever they had in the 1700s. And when they rose, the people in the congregation, turned to one another, and that was it. They would get up and they would leave. But silent meetings were a big part of Quakerism during that early time.
And also too, people were becoming Quakers, and they would come and observe, and they could go up top and just look down and observe before they actually joined the congregation, and there was a lot of that going on. So in 1746, is it called a congregation?
I'm using that word.
The meeting was growing, and they needed space for people. That's what the additions were all about back then. Just space for people. No offices, nothing. It was just all wide open. No classrooms, nothing. That came later in 1872. But over here is what I want to talk about structurally. So what happened is that they had to install these perpendicular girders to support the balcony load. These girders ran from the beam that was installed in 1746 when they took this wall out to the exterior wall. And you can see that it kind of comes in at a window post over here. And over here, you can see it's coming a little short of the wall, and it's actually starting to rotate about its axis.
Oh, yeah.
So they've put screw jacks in at some period to take the load of these two girts. Also, these girts have suffered insect damage, which you can see here. That's the powder from it that would get caught between the trim and the beam itself. If you look down there, you can see that it's eaten out pretty good. And the reason over there is it's also taken water from the exterior, from infiltration. And that water also attracts the insects. So these two girders are in need of emergency repair, as well as this back post
We
here.
should mention too that last summer, at the suggestion of Andrew here, our architect, we did a full building treatment for powder post beetles, carpenter ants. None were found active. I believe they found a couple of carpenter ants, but there are no longer any carpenter ants. And rodent control. There's a monthly rodent control program, but we did a full building treatment just to be sure that our structural repairs, aren't wasted on that.
So we can see a lot here. Right here is one of the original 1746 sills. You can see in dire need of repair. Concrete was poured, I don't know when. Recently, they took out the wood framing within the floor, poured concrete, but they left the old sill, which is rotted out and sustained insect damage. and one of the 1746 corner posts, you can see here, is in need of repair. So this whole area here and that side that I showed you outside, this is where we need to focus first with emergency repair, even before the roof repairs can go on, because there's been so much movement in deflection and deformation on this side. So that's what we're going to focus on. Here, you're looking at the 1746 plaster and lath again, and they furred out in front of it, lathed it, and replastered in 1872. You can see that lath over here that got cut off.
Yeah.
But
I just want to point
cut
out
is all
too
over
that down here is what Andrew was talking about. This whole sill has sunken down. This is the back corner of the building that we were at outside.
Used to be here, Holly. See that board? That's how far it's gone down.
That's incredibly low. And originally, before you could see this yellow foam and the wood in there, we had the highway department come out and do a quick emergency repair to fill in this hole for the winter while we work on the design of these repairs, these immediate repairs before we replace the roof. So the highway department came in and quickly filled that in for us. So thankful for that. No more rodents can get in there because it was a pretty large gaping hole. And so yeah, again, what Andrew said, we're focusing on this corner first.
You can, this here we can also see, this is interesting, that this was a post and plank building. This building has planks that are a little over an inch thick by 12 to 24 inches wide that run from sill all the way up to either the top plate or the gable. These are two where they come together right there. You can see them. This would be about this wide. Those start at the sill, go all the way up to the plate or the gable. Here's two there. In 1746, this would have been it. They just lathed and plastered over that. They were done, or lathed and put a wainscoting. This is a whitewash wainscoting that you see here. This is a very old whitewash, by the way.
So really no insulation.
No, none whatsoever. They had no insulation back then. The horsehair plaster had a little bit of an R value, but not much. So, and then also too, it's interesting to note, in 1701, there was no heat at all in the 34 by 30 building. The two chimneys, which you can see one here, those were added in 1746. At that time, there were fireplaces. This fireplace has been filled in. They weren't casting stoves in 1746, right, Marianne?
Right, right. We were just discussing that. There was no pot-bellied stove until we think early 1800s maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. But there was fireplaces. There were dual fireplaces, one on the ladies' side, one on the men's. The ladies' side, that fireplace is still open or has been opened up again. The men's was closed in. And I'm quite sure, because I saw multiple flues, but what they did in 1872, they had stoves now. So they buttoned up the fireplaces and put stoves in. You can see the thimble there, and there was another thimble there that they plugged the furnace into.
Yeah.
They had two stoves coming out, and upstairs that was real helpful because they plugged in, when they made it into classrooms, each had its own stove up top. So the main chimneys and hearths were built in 1746, converted to stoves in 1872 down there. So, and you can see the screw jack I was talking about that's they put in to temporarily support that balcony over there. Now, what's interesting, we can head upstairs, but we can look at over here. You can see over here that in 1746, the balcony they added ended here. And you can see the drop beam. Now over there you can see that the beam is flush. Doesn't come down below the ceiling. That's because the balcony was extended in 1872 from here to there.
Yep,
they doubled the size of the balcony.
To there.
And at that time, they seemed, and you can see there, you see that knee brace?
Yeah.
They reinforced this area because they made a 50-person meeting room up here. Now, here's the interesting thing. We talked about the additions of 1746 because the population was growing, By 1872, the population was no longer growing, it was dropping, but they became a pastoral congregation where they were now using a pastor. It was no longer silent. So he needed an office, they needed places to meet, they needed classrooms for Sunday school, and that's what they were doing in 1872 and again in 1889 when they remodeled this again. We know those dates because they show up in the records. Do you know what the name for those records were that they still have?
They would have been the minutes of the meetings. That's what they referred to them as.
And then once a year they had to meet, with, or was it quarterly? Or? With a larger group, right?
With the larger group in Providence, once a year. That was the yearly meeting. And one of the reasons, Andrew, that they began to expand so much in 1746 was not only their own initial population growing, but this had been made a quarterly meeting, which meant that Quakers from Fall River and Freetown, Sonnet, Tiverton, were all encouraged to come to this meeting house when services were held once a week. And one of the Slades, a member of the Slade family, actually operated a private service across the Taunton River to bring the Quakers from Fall River and from Tiverton across so that they could come here on Prospect Street and attend the services.
Why did it change to pastoral services from?
It was a movement at the time where some Quakers wanted to become more like mainline Protestant denominations, where there was a minister and there would have been music in the church and there would have been perhaps flowers in the church. There was none of that in the Quaker Meeting House. And this particular meeting did become pastoral, others did not.
How many collections did they have?
I don't know, Andrew. I don't know. But I know they collected. I will tell you that I mentioned to you earlier that restoration in 1746 cost 200 British pounds and change. That was a lot of money in 1746. That was a lot of money. And they wanted to do it the right way, and from the looks of things they did. We'd never have it today if they hadn't.
No, don't forget, we're in a building that's almost 320 years old, the spot that I'm standing in.
It's pretty amazing.
That's old, and it served the community very well. I attended something here about 10 years ago, and it was still in pretty good condition. I'm actually quite shocked at how much it's deteriorated since then, and no longer running heat and water infiltration, so we're here to do something about that.
Yeah.
Get a good roof on it. So we'll go upstairs. So they planned for this to have a lot of people up there. That side, not so much. It's built a little better than this side. But what's interesting, before we go up, if we look under the stairs, it gives us some clues of, to how it was built. If you look in here, you can almost see an imprint of stairs in the plaster.
Yeah.
Where there was a stair stringer.
Yeah.
That's how the stairs appeared after the 1746 edition. When they made the improvements in 1872, they put this stair in.
Oh.
You can see the bandsaw marks on the wood. That would date
yeah.
the wood to about that time. And then I can see the rotary marks on the edge. So it would have been cut with a bandsaw that way and then ripped down with a steam saw. But see the stair? Goes all the way down. You can see the imprint in the plaster. And I can see the change in the lath. Can you, Holly? See where it goes from light lath to dark?
Oh, yeah.
So that light lath, which was like a split accordion lath, that was from 1746. And then the smaller, darker pieces, that's 1872.
Okay.
Where after the stair was taken out, they had to fill in.
Yeah.
So you're going from 1746 plaster to 1872 over here, just in there. And there's an original post from 1746 right there. So they just made the stairs less steep and a little safer in 1872.
Got it.
So we go upstairs now.
Okay.
So again, here's the ladies' entrance. from both, going all the way back to 1701. And there's that gun stock post from 1701.
So is that from, I can't remember what Rick Shane had said, if it was powder post beetles or termites. Wonder.
I don't know.
A lot of things,
Right,
probably.
and definitely some water infiltration. And you can see they even patched it over the years with, this is a straight Dutchman that they just slid right in. So these stairs here, and this new post in millwork, this is all 1872. And here's the meeting room. So you see the hump in the floor here?
Oh, I never noticed it before.
This is the line of 1701 and 1746.
Yeah.
This is the 11-foot woman's addition. And then the balcony ended here in 1746. Then in 1872, they extended the balcony out to here. And this is 1872 millwork. Here and here. And they had, I don't know if these were original, but they did have shutters at this time now where they could shutter this off in 1872 and have a meeting room here. Or they could open it up and it could be part of the service going on below. But again, now in 1872, they're no longer growing, but now they're meeting. You can see that they even had a curtain rod up there where they could make a little private room in case they wanted to have a little class.
We were wondering what that was.
Yeah, that would just, they could pull a curtain, have little classes or whatever. It was just a way to divide this space up. Because now we've moved into, they were worshiping differently and they were having Sunday classes. They needed offices and workspace for the pastor. They changed that all. Another interesting thing is this vent up here. You can see they had a rod that they would put over that hook and rotate, and you can see that pattern that's cut in. The metal plate above it would slide. Mm-hmm. And what that was for was when they were burning oil lamps. When they burned the oil lamps, the lamps weren't vented. So, for lack of a better word, the smoke or the products of combustion would be coming into the room. It would vent right up there, right out the attic, and through the vent in the roof. So that was a way they would vent their oil lamps back when they were. These lamps here were put in the 30s. Just used to have oil lamps up here. There's a stove. That's a thimble for a stove. That would have been 1872 vintage. They would have the stove for the meeting room up there. This balcony here was put in 1746. It would have gone all the way over. And then over here, there's a 1746 balcony that was over the men's side. This one still has the old winding stairs that were not improved. In 1740, this is the 1746 stair.
Extremely narrow.
Yeah, and down at the bottom they added 3 treads in 1872, but that's about it. This stair, the other side would have looked like this. Remember we were showing you the input in the plastic?
Yeah.
But in 1872, they made it less steep, a little safer. This is real interesting. This is a crook, from the crux of a tree, a knee brace from 1701. So in 1701, that was just a tall space, no balcony. This was a knee brace that kept the building from racking in the wind. And that's the original that they just built a cupboard behind it. And we can see some of the, see the real wide boards under there? Some of the original boards. Possibly from 1701, but definitely 1746. If not, you can see it behind there where they just boarded it up. But this is, that's a gem right there. And they would choose, they would find a part of the tree that had grown to that arch, and they would use it specifically for that. And there's the chimney on that side. There was this thimble that's covered up now. There was a thimble here and there. So what happened so we talked a lot about the 1872 modifications, but in 1888, The modifications were, they petitioned this off, they made 2 classrooms and a library. This was what they called the library. Those are the bookshelves there, see them?
Oh, yeah.
This was the library. These were 2 classrooms where they could have Sunday school and whatnot. Then sometime between then and now, they made this into a kitchen up here, and right below us, they put in a bathroom. There's only one bathroom still here. It's still just a 1-seater. That would have went in sometime between 1889 and now. So that's about it. It's this corner here again. You can see that we exposed this post. You see that down here is that post that we looked at with the cylinder damage. We line up here. Here's the oak post. You can see some insect damage up here. Again, it's a shouldered post.
Is that considered shotgun?
Yeah, this is a gun stock
Or
post.
gun stock, yeah.
Right, see it here? And all this did is they widened the post at the top so you could take girders or beams in 2 directions.
Right.
So the stock part is taking this beam coming across, and the beam along the back would just come in this way. So it's called a shouldered post or a gun stock post. This dates all the way back to 1746, this one here. But this here is 1872 plaster, which was furred out, and if you look through the cracks, you can see the original wall from 1746. That would have been back there.
I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. It's really cool.
So the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
Yep.
And, so we're here to set priorities, and the first priorities is some of these emergency repairs, which we're going to, we have the means to do this spring, and then we're going to roll right into a new roof, because we got to get the envelope so that we're not taking in any more water. Once we get the major structural repairs out of the way and the roof on, then we can assess the next round of repairs. So we're here to make priorities today.
We're all so excited.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much, Ann.
You're welcome.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Very, very informative.
This all on camera here. So, as you all might remember, last summer we had the FOSHP gala, Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation. We raised a great amount of money. We've also received several grants. We'll be making a formal announcement, but we're now finally able to do this. This is kind of our kickoff tour to let everybody know what we're doing, where we stand. We've been working for the past few months with Andrew and with the committee and the town, Richard Brown, to move this thing forward. So we're making steps and wanted to let everybody know we're all really excited, and we'll continue to keep you posted. All right, thanks everybody.
It's like the shingles drop about 2 inches.
Hi everybody, Holly here with Tony Kucikas. Say hi, Tony.
Hello, Holly. How you doing?
We're here again at the Quaker Meeting House, doing a quick update for you. Castro Construction's here. Sino and Al are at work again. They've made quite a bit of progress in the past week or two since our last video. And so I'm gonna walk around here and show you. Sino's gonna give us a description of what's happened since our last update here. So 1 second, they're actually in process here.
I'm gonna bolt at that. Okay. And we could just make it square. Okay.
So hi Sino.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. So just a quick summary of what's transpired, I guess, since the beginning, but it's if you'd like to.
So we replaced the rotted sheathing that was all bug eaten.
Which is
Yeah, that
Here.
stuff there.
with nails from
Yeah,
1746-ish.
yeah, somewhere around that time.
Yeah.
And we replaced it with continuous sheathing. It does, the longest piece is 28 feet. And so right around this gable and about 8 feet on that side, we were able to save the old windows. We took them out, put on new casing, and painted it up. And so those are original windows. We put some flashing down at the bottom, hopefully keep the bugs out. Yeah, and we.
What do you think about the original construction?
It's pretty interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
it held up 300 years, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, and the sawing,
Yeah,
the
just-
wood.
If it wasn't for the bugs, I
Yeah.
think the building would be in great shape. The wood is actually, and you can see it, the wood is actually in really good shape. It just, the bugs had gotten to a lot of the joints and a lot of the beams,
Right.
and they really feasted on it, and it was pretty bad. So, but yeah, we covered it with house wrap, and we're ready to shingle.
Awesome.
It looks good.
So pretty soon, hopefully by winter, we'll be able to replace the roof.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I think we'll be done in another week or so.
Okay.
So, and
Excellent.
after that, I think you're good to go with your roof.
All right.
So, yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you.
All right.
All right, we're gonna look in the inside. I'm gonna take them in. You know.
Okay, I'm actually going back inside.
Okay,
So
we're following you.
I'll valve you with something,
Okay.
so I'll go inside. Al, do you want to cut this with
You can see the dumpster here.
Yeah, I looked at that. I took a picture of that for you.
Yeah, a lot of wood, a lot of rotted wood. So we're gonna go in and show you what's been going on. Here, let me turn this. Here's the front steps. So they've been doing a ton of work here. This is the new beam that they are having to replace. And you can see the notches here will fit up here. So again, this addition, I misspoke last time, I had the wrong date, but this side of the building was added on. The original building was built in 1701, and this addition here, where we're doing the structural repairs at the back corner, was done in 1746. So 18th century, all of it. You can see the original boards here. What we were kind of trying to look at last time, they've removed the plaster and the horsehair. And then here are the new ones that were all rotted and chewed out from powder post beetles. You can see the column here, that's the original column. And they married it here, notched it, bolted it. You can see where the rot was from the bugs eating it, but luckily we caught that in time. Let's see, all the way down, and that whole sill, it's dusty right now, it's sawdust, but the whole sill was replaced. So the foundation is stable now, and the structure is stable. And you can see the window, they put the back of the window, and this here is just shoring. This is holding up the floor above for them to replace the beam, the rotted beam that was once there. You see there's the beam again. And Tony, have they worked on the stairs yet?
I think they took a lot of it apart, Holly, but
Okay.
I don't think they've done any replacement there. They're still on this corner.
Okay,
But I do know that they pulled a lot down, which you should get a nice picture of it.
okay. So
It's
just
really
to show
damaged.
you the other piece of structural repair that we're doing on the stairs,
They've taken it down.
you can see this column here, gun stock.
You can see how bad it is
It's
inside.
horrendously bad. Look, from all the bugs. Powder post beetles. Pretty gross. So they're starting to clear this out. You can see it. It's disgusting. Real bad. Yeah, see that there? And all that there is gonna be replaced. I'm gonna take you guys upstairs. And we had a video tour with Ann McDonald and our architect Andrew DiGiammo earlier, about a year ago, back in February actually. Oh wait, let me show you this view. So a lot of this was covered in that video. You'll see on the Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation site webpage or Facebook page. See, that's the view from up top of that corner we were just in. Here's a nice little mobile that someone made before they condemned the building. Not really condemned it, I shouldn't use that word, but vacated the building. And in here is the second floor where they're doing the rest of the work. So you can see the boards on the exterior facade run all the way up to the top, which is extremely unique and awesome. You just don't see buildings built this way at all, ever. That's again original window. Really cool stuff. And so see this post, we talked about it in the original 1 hour video or so with Andy, DiGiammo, and Marianne. This is called the gun stock post. It looks like a gun stock, like a gun, barrel of a gun. So it's pretty cool. Anything else, Tony?
Well, no, I was just going to say, just to remind you, Holly, that the siding goes up almost 20, the fairing is almost, fir boards go up 28 feet. And it was built on post and beam. Very, very nicely constructed. The guys are really amazed as to how nice it's in pretty decent shape without the bud problem.
Awesome.
So very happy about the work being done by these two folks.
So Tony has been here. Tony has been here every single day. He has stopped in and checked on the guys and taken pictures. It's really incredible, and thank you for doing that, Tony. But like Tony said, they really actually don't need supervision. They're incredible. They do great work. They're just awesome. They know what they're doing, and they work closely with the architect. And the architect's been out as well. So, yeah, 1701, guys. Finally repairing. So once this is done, we should be able to replace the roof by winter, hopefully. So that's about it. But is there anything else we should add? No?
Just keep on going.
Okay. I'm gonna give you one last look on the outside. Okay. Oh, this is their shoulder, their platform here, but you can see there's the roof. I'm gonna take you guys to the back of the building and show you a little bit more, because I didn't show you that last time. But again, if you want to see the full tour of the structure before we did any work, just go to Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation. You'll see it linked in the post of this video. I linked it to the page, and you'll see a video from February of Marianne, myself, and the architect touring the building and going through the actual history of the construction, why it was constructed the way it was, why and when and who. They're just a wealth of knowledge. So here we are. I'm going to bring you around the back. You can see all the shingles they have ready to go. On the side, they've saved those original boards for us. Sorry guys, I'm going to walk through here. Okay. And this is still the grounds of the Quaker Meeting House. They have a few graveyards. Some of the graves are unmarked. And then you can see the monument here. It's not where she was buried, but it's a headstone for Patience Brayton, who was instrumental in the abolition of slavery and very involved here and at the Quaker Meeting House in the 1700s. So here's the back. You can see where the tree fell. The tree hit the stone wall and fell and hit the roof in the last storm that we had. So that shifted the structure down quite a bit in this corner, more than it was moving to begin with, which was a problem, but it then became an emergency. So you can see the old shingles, and they'll be replacing them with new shingles as well. So that is our update. Tony? Yeah. So I think we're good, but wanted to give you guys a quick update, and we'll continue to do so. Once again, this is all paid for by the 501c3 that we formed for the Quaker Meeting House repair, and to also continue to preserve structures in Somerset without using taxpayer dollars. So this is all donated money, grant money. We're continuing to apply for grants and things like that to raise money because a lot of people really wanted to see this building stay and wanted to preserve it. And so we found a way to have a conduit for the finances so that we don't have to go back to the town whenever we need something. So really excited about it. It's finally happening after 2 years of work, and I will continue to keep you posted.
Holly, let me just add one thing.
Yep.
I just want to really thank you for spearheading this and really making this come forward, because we looked at this for many, many years, and it wasn't until you came on board to help us get this going.
Thank you, Tony. You know, I really, when I first learned about this building, I drove by it all the time, and I didn't really know much about it at all until I was elected into office, and I'm very passionate about this kind of stuff. And then I got to know you and Mary Ann, and you know, I saw a lot of people that had this similar interest. People were donating money, and we had nothing. We were like, well, what do we do with this money? We have to do something with this money. They wanted to help, and you know, all I did was take a tour alone and posted some pictures about it, and then more and more people saw the pictures and were like, what is that building? I want to know more about it. I want to help. And so that kind of started to create more awareness. And Mary Ann calls it a resurgence of interest in the history of Somerset, which she's very excited about. I know you're excited about. And I really had no idea all of the work that had gone into this over a decade ago. It's just a very hard thing to tackle. I know Somerset's going through a huge transition right now, but if we wait any longer, we'll have nothing. So we're frying a lot of fish in town. We're doing a lot. We have a lot going on. This is just one of the things. But I couldn't do this without you, Tony, without Mary Ann, without our huge committee. We have a great committee. And the board for the FOSHP, Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation. They're all very active, very, very driven, incredible people. So, you know, I can't do it without you guys. So thank you for the kind words, but you're involved just as much. So thanks, guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll be updating you again soon.
Al, we want to see those good-looking
Hi,
legs.
everybody. We're back at the Quaker Meeting House here on Prospect Street. I'm here with Tony and Mary Ann. Tony Kucikas and Mary Ann McDonald.
Hello?
That's Al in the background. Sorry, Al. Okay. We have some small updates, but they're still big updates, even though you've seen it recently. We
Watch your step.
are going to quickly walk. I'm going to show them. The side is still the same. I haven't been over, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The back is finished.
The back is done. So I'm going to flip this around here. And just for those who are joining us that haven't seen the other updates, we are doing structural repairs to the Quaker Meeting House that was originally built in 1701. The corner I'm about to show you was an addition in 1746. Did I get that right? Yes. And these are structural repairs that became emergency repairs. They were on their way to, they're pretty deteriorated due to pest infestation and powder post beetles. And the column and the sill was completely deteriorated. And then in a recent storm, we had a large, very old tree at the corner, which I'll show you right now. The tree right there fell, and we got very lucky because it didn't fall directly on the building, but it hit the side, and it hit so that this corner here displaced even more than it already had been. So it became an emergency repair. Again, this is all being funded by the newly formed Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation 501c. We formed that to prevent having to go to the taxpayers for money. So we're a nonprofit 501c3. again, these are structural repairs that are required before replacing the roof. We can't put the roof on, which is the goal here. That was the article on the warrant 2 years ago, was to get the material for the roof. And we're raising money for the labor of the roof, but we cannot put that roof on until we do these structural repairs, because obviously you can't put a new roof on a building that can't hold it up. So, so you can see the new shingles that have been installed. They redid parts of the foundation here. On the inside, there's a new sill. Underneath here is a brand new sill. They replaced the original window, so they removed it and then put it back. And the frame is actually new. Same goes for up there. And the goal right now is to make this watertight for the winter. The roof is currently being designed, and we'll hope to have the new roof by the winter. You can see here the original boards that we removed. These boards we talked about last time. They were cut completely by hand. These nails, you can see the nails even there from the 1700s. They're iron nails, handmade, and the boards were cut by hand, floor to ceiling, floor to roof, all the way up. So the boards would run from the sill here all the way up to
28 feet.
the roof. 28 feet was the longest one. And you can see it wraps around here in the back. They shingled that whole thing, and they're almost done here with the shingles on this side. So I'm going to take you to the inside. Do you guys want to add anything?
No, I think you covered that pretty completely.
Okay, great.
Tony's. Did you show the foundation? Because that was a
Yeah, so
a
let's
disaster.
look one more time at the foundation, then I'll show you the inside. See there? Can you guys hear me? So you can see that's the original foundation. They built it up a little bit more, and underneath is the sill. So I'm going to take you in and show you the sill again.
Holly, explain
Yes.
a little bit about how you're going to remove the dirt away from that, so we save all that other stuff. In other words, we have to take this out, the landscape.
Oh,
away
so
from the
yeah, the
building, so
highway
we don't
department
have that
helped
problem.
with pulling soil away from the building, because what was happening here was the soil was built up and the water was going, it wasn't sloped away from the building, which is a no-no, especially when you have wood. It needs to be at least 8 inches away from the wood. So we've pulled that away from the building so that it will drain properly. So I'm going to take you inside. And again, this was built in 1701 with additions in 1746. All right, turning this around. And so here we are, and you can see this is the shoring to hold up the floor below, and this is the new beam that we're seeing now that was being prepped the last time we were here. You can see it fits perfectly. It notched like a puzzle. And you can see these are the boards, the new boards, that they've married together, and they mimic the original boards that run floor to roof all the way up. And obviously you can't see it go all the way up from the inside because it stops at the second floor. But see here, you can see the difference between the original boards and the new ones. But the original boards are actually very, very strong. They're still in great shape. They're old, but you can see how they were hand cut, and the line from one board to the next. It's like a puzzle. It fits. So, but anyway, yeah, these new boards needed to be replaced because they were so damaged from the pest control. I don't know if you can, or the pest infestation. So I don't know if you can see the sill. It's still dusty, but they replaced this entire sill down here. Obviously we're going to be cleaning this up, but That whole sill was replaced. Right about here, we used to be able to see daylight. A huge hole was there. And this column here is new. Again, married, bolted. I showed you that last time, and that runs all the way up. So
Holly, did you get the beam? That's all brand
the
new.
beam, yep. See, you can see it from the side here, how they notched the beam. That's a brand new beam right there. So they're finishing that up since the last time. And here we go into the other area of work for these structural repairs. At some point we're gonna post, so this is the permit posted in the window, but at some point we're gonna put something outside that will show the progress of fundraising and will show the progress of construction. We haven't figured that out yet, but we might be looking for some, oh,
Look
wow.
at your new gun stock.
Oh, wow. Okay, so see here, these are the stairs, the original stairs. They're not original. Oh, yeah,
Actually, the stairs were part of an addition that created a second floor, and that was in the late 1800s, in the 1880s, okay? However, everything from this point going towards Holly, who's making the film, okay, is original 1701. I want you to notice a particular detail here. It is a chair rail, and one of the workmen told me that it goes around the entire building, the original building. And I asked if it had a practical reason, and he said yes, they did this in the 17th century in order to keep the boards together. It was not for decoration. That's what I wanted to know, because the Quakers didn't like decoration. They didn't want any ostentation at all. So this seemed to me to be kind of peculiar, but it did have a practical reason. It was to keep the boards together. And you can see this is original wood, and this is the only portion of the original that actually could be saved because it had been so badly damaged. But it is a complete, the reconstruction is exactly as it would have looked in 1701. And where I am standing, let's see, I'll get back here, I would be outside. I would be outside right now in 1701.
Oh, I see. So you can see where we came in right here, and then you come through,
Yeah.
and then you come through here, and here are the stairs, and then that would be outside. So that addition was when?
The addition, including the stairs, about 1880s.
1880s.
1880s. That was the last
second
major renovation on this building.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so see here. I wish I could get up here and show you. Let's see. We looked. Here, wait. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm gonna try. One
Want me
second.
to hold it for you while you talk, Holly?
No, I got it. I'm
You
just,
got it? Okay. Go ahead.
just gonna try. Oh,
There you go.
yeah. Can you see that?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Yep.
looks
So
good.
is this? That's all brand new too.
It's all brand new.
So this whole header is brand new.
And that came from the mills in Fall River.
Oh, that came from the mills.
Yep, 150 years old.
Wow. So these pieces of wood come from the mills in Fall River. They've already cured. They've already kind of gone through the, I guess, dehumidification, and they've come to kind of an equilibrium, and it's great because we won't see the cracking that you would see in new wood. We don't have to go through that whole process. So the architect, we were very lucky that the architect had this wood to provide. Here, I'm going to try to show it again. All right, so this was where, do you remember last time we saw all of the nasty rot and the infestation of the powder post beetles all the way up through that whole thing, and now it's all been replaced, thankfully. I can't believe we're finally seeing this happen. We've been staring at this for a few years, so we've jumped through so many hoops.
Can you just shut that off a minute? I just want to.
I can't turn it off.
Okay,
so
let me just explain a little bit. So
Okay.
Take that to me.
Okay.
Holly, this section right here, this beam is 11 inches wide by, I believe it's about 8 that way. And what they did was 8 inches of it was just rotted away completely. So what they did was they cut it out. We put a beam in. They put a beam in the back. I think it's 8 by 8, and then they added. These are the original walls from the outside of the house, and they glued it back together so it gives it that same oak look. What
Right.
was there before?
And so all of this piece and this piece are new.
No,
They're-
no. These are from the sidings. They've been milled down.
Oh, I see. So this
they're
was
original.
one of the original boards from the
Side of the
facade.
house, yes.
Oh,
Yep. They took
okay.
all the nails out and they milled it down.
Oh,
They
I
glued it back
see.
on there, and that helped strengthen it.
Oh, I didn't
So
realize
it's
that's
back-
what they were doing.
So
That's amazing.
yeah, that is amazing. So
Oh,
it's back
wow.
to oak again.
I see. But
Yeah.
this is from the mills. Of
Yeah,
Fall
that's
River.
from the mills at Fall River.
And that's still 150 years old.
All
and
of
that's
that.
still
all
old.
of that. The mills were built in the 1800s. You're right.
That's incredible. But this piece here is new.
Yeah, that's new.
Okay. Oh wow.
And it's not done yet because they still have to trim it
Right.
to match that. So when you go up there, it looks beautiful.
Right. Oh wow.
Very
Okay.
nice. Matter of fact, the contractors are
Repurposing.
doing excellent work.
They're repurposing our material,
Mm-hmm.
which is really intuitive and really awesome.
You
So
want me to show you what it looked like, Holly?
yeah. Oh, that's the piece.
This is the piece that was taken out. That was a facial piece right here. Just to show you how bad it was.
Wow. Can we save that?
And that, yeah, oh yeah, we're saving this. And this is not termite eaten. This is bug eaten.
Powder post beetles, right?
That's exactly
Okay.
what did that.
Isn't there another name for powder post beetles?
That I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, you can see how bad the wood is. Yeah, we're gonna save these.
Yeah, all these are being, so we can show
And
folks.
show people what it used to look like and have some sort of display. So, anything
Holly,
else?
this is another piece that came off there.
Oh yeah.
If you want to show that also. Just to show you how bad it was.
It's incredibly bad. And
Solid oak.
and I can't recall if it was Tony or Marianne that told me that a lot of this damage wasn't necessarily new damage.
No, they told us it's old damage. It's old damage.
Yeah, they knew in the 1800s that there was a problem with that arch that we just took a look at. Okay, that
A
you
problem
just-
like what kind of problem?
bug
Bug
problem.
fever.
That long ago?
Yep.
Yes, and they took measures to do what they could, and we don't know whether they had any insecticide available at that time, that they could have used, but it was definitely beginning. It was at least 6 to 8 inches up the post in the 1880s.
Oh
So
my
that
God.
post several generations of powder post beetles.
Oh my God! So that post was, wow. So that's about 200 years of damage,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So 200 years of powder post beetle damage, and the building is still standing, which is remarkable. I
Amazing.
can't really wrap my head around it. So, well, not only that, the building itself is 300 and
Well,
18.
1701.
right
Yeah.
years old. So, we're finally maintaining it.
Well, the contractor that was just in here mentioned that wood is so strong. That original wood is so strong. It's old growth wood, and it's like steel. It's not like the wood we have today.
Yeah.
It's like steel. It was so strong,
For
right,
the
Tom?
age of the wood. For the
Yeah.
age of the wood.
Yeah.
For the age of the trees before they took them down.
Yeah.
They
God knows
aged
how
it
old
and
they
they
were.
cut it by hand
They cut
with
it
the
by hand,
grain.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's our update.
Update number 3.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right, great. We'll continue to keep you posted. Marianne waved hello and goodbye, and Tony.
Waves hello and goodbye. Thank you for
And I
being
wave
with
hello
us.
and goodbye. Thanks, everybody. We'll keep you posted. We're going to be compressing all of this and putting it on SATV as well. So thanks again. And we'll be starting to plan our new gala soon. The third annual will be this June, 2019. So keep your eyes out. It'll probably be the Fabulous 50s. Is that what we said? So start thinking about that. It'll be towards the end of school in June.
I heard a rumor that Elvis was coming.
Oh, we heard a rumor Elvis was coming. So we're really excited about our themed event. The first one was the 18th century theme because, to go along with the age of the building. It was really fun. So every year we're going to change it up a little bit and go with a different decade, different era. So anyway, thanks again. Hi everybody, we're here inside the Quaker Meeting House, and the structural repairs have been complete. So we're here with the committee, and this is Andy, our architect, Andrew DiGiammo, and Castro from Castro Construction, and his brother Al had done a tremendous job. And Andy donated his time and his services, which we're extremely grateful for because this wouldn't be happening otherwise. As well as the grants we've received and the fundraising efforts that have gone into this, we're very grateful for all of the above. So I'm going to turn the camera around so we can chat a little bit for a couple minutes with Andy and Sino to talk about what was done. And we've kind of already updated everybody here, but just kind of do an overview of the final product. All right, so hi everybody. Wave. You're on the air. Here's everybody. And we're inside, and Sino and Al cleaned the carpet. I mean, we haven't seen the carpet this clean in ages, so they left it better than they found it. So do you guys want to?
Sure. So the meeting house is in need of many repairs. So to start, we focused with the ones that were most eminent and need the most work. The goal is to get a roof on so that we avoid further damage, but there were some repairs that had to be done to even get that work done. Most of it focused in this corner right here. This corner has the most damage, mostly because the site and most of the water gets directed towards this corner of the building, which caused everything to drop and sag. Then when the building dropped and sagged, everything on the roof started rolling this way also. So.
And I mentioned too with the paper, the trees falling and hitting the roof and making it worse.
Right.
Deeming it emergency.
Yes, very large tree fell in one of the early spring nor'easters and hit the back of the building, which we had to do some emergency repairs from that. This corner post, which is a 1746 post, we're standing in the 1746 edition right now, had substantial insect and water rot about halfway up. So Alcino and Al put a scarf joint about halfway through. You can see that here. So this is the line of the original 1746 post. Alcino and Al made a scarf joint, and we glued and bolted a new 8x8 post to the bottom of that. This 8x8 post comes out of a mill from the Durfee Union Place in the building where the registry used to be. We took this out in a structural repair over there. Why it's important to use this is, first of all, the lumber is old growth, such as the 1746 timber. We cannot get old growth lumber anymore. It's all cut out of newer trees now. And it's also fully seasoned and has checked as much as it's going to. So we know that it's going to be stable now that it's in place. So we didn't want to put a new growth lumber in that would shrink, crack, and whatnot. So not quite as old as the 1746, but this one here was probably milled in the late 1800s. So should do its job. Very dimensionally stable, and was by coincidence exactly the same size as this post. So that was the first part of all this. The first part was to repair the sill. The sill head was gone for half the building. So the highway department came and scraped the earth away from the building. It's not so much that the earth was too high, it's that the building sunk, and this is the high point. So the idea here is scrape the earth away. We won't bring earth back, we'll bring back some stone. And that will give, it will at least give the water somewhere to sit before it goes back in the ground, rather than just staying as in the wet organic soil against the building. They repaired the sill. We did use pressure treated down there. So they repaired did some repair to the stone foundation. These old buildings are not attached to their foundation. They simply sit on top. Alcino and Al repaired the stones, fit them back together, used some cement and mortar, put a new sill down, and patched back into floor. The floor is, the original floor in this building is gone. That's long gone, and they've poured concrete at various times in different locations. And so at this point there, we're working on a new sill, which this post is set into. So after we got the sill and the post done, we then had to focus on the summer beams, which are on the outside of the building and tie in. They had substantial rot also. Most notably, this one was worse than we thought, but most notably was over here. This had sagged, how much, Al?
Well, about 4 inches.
This had sagged 4 inches, and there was a temporary post here, if you remember.
Yeah.
There was a screw jack like you might put in your basement. So that post was there to take it up because it was literally coming down. So
That post.
here, we replaced this balcony beam over here with, that's a new, it looks like natural lumber, but that's an engineered product. Natural lumber can't span from there to there. So again, very dimensionally stable, this piece we put in. And Alcino actually notched each existing balcony rafter. The balcony rafters were fine, clearly undersized by today's standard, but they're as good as the day they were put in. So you can see them coming into the new beam that Sino fit in. Sino notched our new beam into the old. You can see the old connection.
Yeah.
The new fitting into the old.
Awesome.
Then he individually notched, he scribed and notched each piece so that they fit,
God.
custom fit inside and won't pull out. So you're looking at the 1746 floorboards on the 1746 joists and the replaced beam that we couldn't save no matter what we did. So the one thing we did have to add a little steel here that we'll get, you know, when the trim goes in, when the trim goes back, that'll all get covered. But we needed quite a connection here because that's picking up a third of the balcony load coming right to here. The windows are all gone except we think we found one original. Where was it, Sino?
It's upstairs.
Right there?
above us.
Yeah. So although we pulled this, everything was pulled out around the window, it didn't have any framing, we added this. The work that we did put back an exterior window, we did it to try and match the frames of the 1746 window. Windows back then had a structural frame. They were actually structural themselves, the frame. So anyways, here we put back, this is also from that mill. These pieces of lumber that we milled out of a beam to fit around here so we know they'll be dimensionally stable. Then this beam over here, this was real interesting. So this beam here looks like it always did, but it's not, it's very different. So what we did here, and it was actually Sino's idea, it's a good one. You'll see in the old 1746 beam, but the whole back has been scalloped out, cut into a C-section. So you're seeing you're seeing two edges of the old beam, but behind it, it's completely scalloped out and we put engineered lumber in the back and bolted it. So now we got an engineered lumber section that is able to span the distance on its own, but it's still encased by the old beam.
Oh, wow.
Therefore, we're able to save it, and you can never even know that it's there. So, so that post there, unlike this one, that's a 1701 corner post there. It's a shouldered post or a gun stock. You can see the balcony beam, which tried to pull away. See the gap? Right there? That there is a 1701 post. But back, we think in the 1800s, they scabbed another post in front of it, if you can see, just because the other beam was pulling away, so they tried to pick it up. There were major renovations in the 1870s. That's when we think they scabbed that on top. So then, after we got the frame all in place, the corner post, the sill, the floor framing, we then could attack the vertical boards on the outside. This is what they call a post and plank frame. By the time this was built, they had figured out that, you know, they could eliminate a lot of the frame and joinery that they were doing, which was very time consuming, because the planks would do a lot of the work. So this house has heavy planks. They're about 1/8 of an inch, an inch and an eighth to 1 1/4 inches thick, and they run the whole distance of the building from sill to plate. Now, what you're looking at over here is 1746 planks. And the reason it looks like a zebra is because you're seeing where the accordion lath was and where the plaster squeezed through when they plastered the wall. So the wood lath is about, how thick, Alcino? The wood lath?
3/8.
So the wood lath was about 3/8 nailed to that, and then the plaster was on top of that. How thick do you think the plaster was?
About the same.
So I can't add, was that 3/4? So the finished plaster would have been about 3/4 on that face, and that would have been the finished building. Now, what they did, then in the 1800s, they lathed over that, then again,
Yeah.
put up a wainscoting, right, halfway up,
Yep.
and then plastered it again with 1800s plaster. Yeah, so, but that, what you're seeing there is 1746.
You can tell the difference in the two plasters. The original lathing was hand cut. You could tell it was hand cut. And the 1800s one was, with the saw.
In the 1800s, that's the split accordion. They would take a board and hatchet it, right, and pull it apart.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty, you could tell that it was hand cut.
Yeah. So, and then look at the width on this one. This is random width, whatever they have, but see it? This goes from here to there.
Oh, yeah.
So how wide is that, Al?
That's
Over a
about
foot,
18
right?
inches,
Yeah.
So these are the 1746 boards right here. So the boards in this corner were completely gone, especially the bottom half, because they've been sitting in the dirt and the water. So, what we've done here is.
And the bugs ate them too, right?
Yes.
Did they?
Yeah,
Okay.
the bug, yeah.
Termites.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're long gone, there was nothing left to eat.
That'll take care of it.
They were
Take
probably
away
here
their
in
food source.
1920.
Wow.
So, so what you're seeing here is, we took 2x10 fir rafters, 1.5 inches thick, planed them to the thickness of the old siding, which is about 1 1/8 inches, sometimes a little stronger. Then they were all doweled and glued up in the shop together to form essentially planks as wide as the old. So we're getting the exact same action as the old planks. We cannot get that product like that. So we made our planks out of fir rafters that we glued up, and these run from sill to plate, just like the old ones. So they behave exactly like the other ones behave. So you can see, we had to go a little further than planned. You can see the change. This one goes to that window jamb. And over here, we're going all the way over to here. Past this window, and then you see the 1746 planks pick up again.
It's incredible.
We also, upstairs in the attic, to keep this from spreading laterally, we put some straps, steel T-straps upstairs to take care of the lateral problem. And that's about the extent of the work in this area, is that right?
Yep, pretty much.
So of course, to work on these boards and corners, we had to strip all the shingles. All the shingles were stripped. There was only one layer in this corner.
One layer on that side, two on this.
Yeah, so some of those old shingles are still there, and they're just shingled over them, the
Yeah.
original outside that seem to be, they're like a red cedar or a cypress, right?
Well, look like red cedars to me.
Yeah.
Could be cypress.
So we re-shingled all that back. You'll notice if you went out there, there's a vertical board where we stopped. That's because that's where we stopped, there's a double layer. So there's a thickness difference. So the thinking is, when that gets redone, they'll be flush with our new when they come in. So
Okay.
that vertical board is only temporary.
It's temporary, okay.
Yeah. So, the other major structural repair was over here. So the major portion of the work focused on this corner post right here. This corner post was a 1701 post, and it's got a real interesting story that unfolded while we were doing the work. So on first inspection, when I first saw it, it looked like a standard 1701 gun stock post, but it wasn't. It was far from it. So what had happened was this was an original 1701 corner. And then of course the porch went out. The porch was here in 1701, where you're standing. But this post here, you can see that it flares out here like a gun stock. But this stair you're looking at here, this stair was put in the 1870s, I think 1874 or 2. That's when this stair was put in, okay? Before that, in 1746, they put one in that was exactly the same as that one. That was located in the corner. How do we know? You can see the line of it under this one still exists if you go underneath and look.
Oh yeah, in the boiler room.
Right.
Okay.
So in 1872, they came in and they cut this post for the stair. Now how do we know that? Because the base was still there, cut to the angle of the stair, and they came up to make room for the stair. They cut the post this way and then out like that. And that's how this piece got formed. Then they cut and chamfered into this header here for headroom. Right here. So, what you're seeing here, this is new old stuff, and this is new old stuff. Alcino and Al, we glued up old stock to form this post new. Alcino carved it to the original profile of what we'll call the shoulder or the gun stock now. You can see the original here. Now, see the original pocket mortise where the joints were?
Yep.
Where the joists came in before the renovation, before they cut this header out. So before the renovation in not our renovation, the one in 1872, there were joists here because the stair just wound up in the corner. So that's where these came in. So you can see the line here. From here down, it was completely rotted and gone. So we glued this new piece onto that old one, carved it to the same profile as it was before. And it looks just like it did before, but it's all new. But it's with old stock. This all came out of the mill. This all came out of the same mill. So it's pretty interesting. And this is the old stock too. So what we did here, so we had to glue up and reform it. Here you're seeing the part of the post that was still good. So what we did is we saved any part of the wood we could that was still solid, we saved and glued onto it with the new stuff. So, how much do you think, maybe 20% of the old post is still here? Yeah. So 10, but some of it's still there. Alcino had to take these stairs apart, right? Do all this work, because this goes all the way down to the foundation. Then he had to put them back together like they were. And he had to pop off the beadboard from the 1870s and put it all back. But now this corner is back and stronger than it was originally. So this beam comes through this wall. And we made a scuff joint at this wall because after this, it got strong again. But you can see the old beam on top again. See it? And you can see our glue joint. Yep. But you can see how bad, you can see what kind of shape it was in. Now, and you're also seeing the mortise and tenon of the old post in really bad shape. See the peg?
Oh yeah.
I could probably pull out my hand if I wanted, but I won't. That's the old peg with the mortise and tenon, and this is the new piece that we put up underneath to get that one. So this one was in really bad shape. So this corner is back solid. A few other things that we did is the threshold is really dangerous. Coming in and out the door with the shutting right. So we pulled the old threshold, replaced it with a new oak, and we repaired the soffits, that whole back soffit that got hit by the tree out in the back.
Oh, at the roof.
Yes.
Is it still raining?
Because they wouldn't, no, I don't think it is.
Okay. I'm gonna quickly go out there. I don't know if you guys wanna come, but we'll go check it out.
You'll see the low spot over here where we'll put some stone.
Yeah, see all the water. It used to be inside the building.
Probably your best view would be over there.
Okay. It looks amazing.
Soffit is new now,
Oh, wow.
all the way down,
Oh, that's incredible.
ready to accept a new roof.
Amen.
You can see the vertical board I was talking about
Yeah.
inside, and you can kind of see by the paint line where all the new siding is. And you can see Alcino replicated, we tried to figure out the details of the old windows.
Yeah.
So wherever we sided, we retrimmed the old windows, and you can see it there. So you remember how this corner looked?
Yeah.
And it was about, 4 inches lower than it is today? The shingles told the story, remember? They dropped about 3 inches after the window.
You couldn't even see the foundation before.
So this went from the weakest corner to the strongest. So that was the extent of these structural emergency repairs. Now it's time to get a roof on.
Yes. So I just want to summarize by saying I don't even know how to continue to thank Andy DiGiammo and all of his hard work and dedication. And someone just commented that Ginny Jackson's smiling down on you.
Yeah.
And to thank Castro Construction as well. Richard Brown, our town administrator, worked really hard to help us make this happen. And I'm really thankful that my board of selectmen, Dave Barabee and Steve Monis, both supported this project. It is being funded again by the 501c3 that we formed. 99% of it is funded by the 501c3 Friends of Somerset Historic Preservation, and also the prior approval of the CPA funding for the roofing material only. We received 2 Hathaway grants, Hathaway Trust, thanks to them very much, as well as the Taunton River Wild and Scenic organization, and the and a contribution from the Historical Society as well. The Highway Department helped us a significant amount, unlocking the building and helping pull the earthwork away so that the guys could start their work to make this happen. And we were able to use the water buffalo and things like that. So thanks to them. And I actually want to give a shout out to the Historical Society. This all started with Ann McDonald, of course, but Rick Shane, and he's so busy with so many different projects, but he has worked and put his personal time into this, and he's a big reason why we got that CPA funding and got this kicked off the ground. And he was here giving the tours initially when the awareness was created for, what is that building on Prospect Street? What is it? And so I want to thank him and Diane Goodwin and the whole Historical Society as well. And his son Chris has helped, and all of our events and our whole committee. We're working tirelessly. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep having our annual gala, probably in June again this year, at the end of the month when school gets out. And we'll just keep everyone posted. We're going to keep raising money now. The next step is to design the roof replacement, which Andy is doing, and we're hoping we can possibly get it on by winter.
But again, this is donated time, so it's just dependent on time and also weather. But we're looking really good. And after we get the roof replaced, we will treat the entire building as its own project. So we won't piecemeal our way through. You know, we have to follow mass procurement laws, and et cetera. So just going to keep going. So if anyone has any questions, you can reach out, and we will keep you all posted. All right.
Did you mention the historical commission?
Yes, I did. So thank you very much, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.